Good evening, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. Of course, the last 16 days, and we are still in it, is the marking of no violence against women and children. And once again, South Africa confronts the harsh reality that gender-based violence remains one of the most urgent and devastating social crises. Yes, it has been declared a pandemic, but we are still seeing some of the highest reported rates of abuse in the world happening right here in our country. Countless women and children continue to suffer at the hands of perpetrators, often with little recourse, support, or justice. Now, while we have legislations and great talk shops that are happening, what is being done on the ground in order to go ahead and combat the scourge that we are seeing? Joining me now to take this discussion forward, I'd like to welcome Celeste Louw. She's the General Manager of Operations at the Tears Foundation. And of course, they're one of the organizations which assists women and children who are victims of gender-based violence, and of course, takes the fight of gender-based violence to the streets against these perpetrators. Celeste, good evening. Absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I guess, Celeste, as we mark the 16 days of activism, it's quite a busy period for organizations like yours, which of course represents this in terms of awareness and shaping the work that you do during this time.
Yes, 16 days puts the focus onto GBV for those 16 days. But obviously we work every day with it. So during the 16 days, we see there's more reporting because people are more aware of where to go. We see there's a lot more talk about different things around GBV. So there's a little bit more awareness where people are. And we also see that there's more conversation around the issues and talking about what can we do about it. But obviously 16 days isn't enough. It's something we need to address every day.
Yeah, I wanna come back to that, as a follow-up, because this is where I think the crux of the situation lies, or the problem actually, is that, yes, it's beautiful to have these 16 days of activism, and then when it's Women's Month, for that 31 days in August, we are having discussions with regards to the rights of women, the protection of women, but this is a problem that happens 365 days a year. And I guess the educational aspect of it has to remain important.
Absolutely. So I think the thing is that generally speaking, South Africans don't know their rights. I mean, it's just honestly, they don't know where to go, what to do, what their rights are. So education, but education around the issues, because it's a huge societal problem and there isn't a quick fix or a one-step solution. So I think educating people about what is the real cause of GBV and how do we address that, and the fact that there isn't just one approach.
Celeste, it's quite clear that South Africa has some of the highest rates of GBV in the world. We are one of the most violent societies in the world, and I don't think at any given time with a magic stick we are going to resolve this anytime. From your perspective on the ground, because I know as Tears Foundation, you do a lot of groundwork and you visit houses and you have people coming through to you who are victims of gender-based violence. What are some of those urgent realities people need to understand right now? Because it's only when you're on the ground do you actually understand the state of the crisis in which many of our women and children are facing at the hands of men.
I think the thing is that people are unaware of how widespread it actually is. There's still this perception that it's a private matter in families, which it isn't. There's a perception that, survivors are people who are vindictive or who are looking for revenge. And there's all those issues that we have to look at. We have to talk about absentee fathers. We have to talk about generational abuse that is caused situations where people are unhealed and the fallout has changed the way people see the world. We have to look at all of these intricate, difficult societal issues, poverty. We have to look at all the things that are factors in this and understand that historically we are violent. And so there's always the violent solution. And how do we counteract that? So I think we have different programs for that. So we have educational programs because we believe in a three-pronged kind of approach. Education, so that people can understand what the drivers are and how to address them. Response, so that we're responding correctly. And healing, because without healing, none of the other two are going to sit.
Celeste, what would you say are the key drivers of GBV in our country today? When we look back to COVID-19, a lot of it would have been, there's no social supposed interaction that's happening. And this would, of course, allow for there to be frustration happening in the houses. And I guess that's no excuse, because there shouldn't be gender-based violence that is happening at any given situation. But as we speak in the year 2025, what have you assessed to be the key drivers of the scourge in our country right now?
I think there's a lot. So first of all, we need to have a look at, we have a problem with mentoring of boys into men, because we have a problem with absentee fathers. We've got a problem with substance abuse. We have a problem with toxic gender bias. We have a lot of societal issues that feed into gender-based issues. But one of the things that we also have is no clear understanding, because there's no research that is dependable to tell us what's going on the ground. So that is one of our projects as well. So we're collecting data to do a living landscape of what is going on and why is it going on, and trying to understand, because honestly, we as civil society, I think in general, and as the general public as well, the statistics just don't make sense. That what we see coming into our contact center, which we call the Hope Center, for instance, doesn't add up to what the statistics that are being published by the government organizations.
Celeste, when we talk of abuse, I guess abuse happens in so many ways. And that's, of course, the sad reality we face right now, especially here in South Africa. From what you have assessed, how has the nature of patterns changed in recent years? Whether it's digital spaces, economic pressures, social shifts, any other aspect that you've assessed which has seen this change of pattern of abuse towards women and children?
I think that the dawn of the internet, social media, cyber stalking, it is really a horror what is going on online. So that's something that's changed from, say, 15 years ago. Now that is a huge driver for incidents. So there's a lot of things like influencers who push blessers as being a good thing. There's a lot of children online who are easily victimized by perpetrators who are hiding and disguising themselves. There is a huge problem around that space, the cyberspace. But there's also a lot of on-the-ground issues that have never been dealt with. So poverty is one. Financial abuse, so using finances, and that's systemic, right? Even through into corporates, the inability of people to have a financial solution that makes sense and being able to be abused through finances is a problem. The fact that on the ground, it has become difficult to report and to be seen as needing assistance, because we've got great legislation, but it's not implemented.
And that's where, after the break, we're going to continue the conversation with regards to legislation. Is that enough? Bear in mind that in the last year, there have been two cases, the Omotoso case and, of course, the release of Oscar Pistorius, who was found guilty of murder with Riva Steenkamp. And that's where the conversation with Celeste Louw will continue after the break. But before we go, just keep in mind that 9.8% of victims of gender-based violence suffer through sexual abuse. And of course, experience of physical violence by a non-partner is at 5.9%. As we go to the break, keep that in mind. News in Focus continues after this. Welcome back to News in Focus. I'm still in conversation with Celeste Louw, who is the Tears Foundation General Manager of Operations. Again, Celeste, thank you so much for staying with us. Celeste, I guess the role of civil society can't go unnoticed, whether it's fighting gender-based violence, whether it's fighting corruption, whether it's going out to the streets really demanding the basic rights that are enshrined in our Constitution. But of course, for the purpose of this conversation, we are dealing with gender-based violence. In your view, what does a unique role like organizations such as Tears and any others play, which probably government cannot do?
Even if you look at our legislation and how our country is set up, civil society is the voice of the people, and we are supposed to be the watchdog of government. And I think that's really important thing to say. Aside from that, civil society is driven by passionate, solution-driven people who are not tied to certain processes or certain ways of doing things that can be solution-driven in a way that government can't. But the main thing for me is that we are supposed to be the watchdog of government, and we are supposed to be able to implement things that the people need, and that is what we're doing. So as Tears, we are survivor-centered. We create unique solutions for each survivor that phones in. Yeah. We don't have a one-size-fits-all plan for everyone.
You know what, Celeste, during the G20, I had obviously the C20 or the Civil 20, and one of the questions I'd ask them is that where do we get to a point where civil society can play a role in potential legislations? Now, I know it becomes very difficult, especially when it comes to the constitution of the country. But in a case like this, I look at civil society and I say, gender-based violence really needs a holistic approach to it. But unfortunately, we have a constitution which only allows for, government to go ahead and make decisions like this. And I guess that is a deterrence in so many ways, isn't it?
I think it is, but I also think that civil society doesn't know how to access government. So we work with governments all the time. We work with the NPA. We work with organizations in the UN. We work with the policing. And there are ways to get your voice into parliament and into legislature. The problem is, like I said before, many South Africans, including civil society organizations, don't know how to access that. So I think it's about learning how to wield the power that you have.
Celeste, I guess a lot of this also comes to community-driven initiatives. And I know you're fully involved in the way communities really interact amongst itself, because it's important for people to understand that gender-based violence can happen anywhere in the country, whether it's in Alex, whether it's in Khayelitsha, whether it's in Camps Bay, whether it's in Sandton. There is going to be a gender-based violence case given the unique situation that happens there. How can communities themselves play an active role in preventing violence and supporting survivors? And I guess I'll answer that question from my perspective, and I'll get you to answer it, in that us as men really need to step up when it comes to this.
So that's one of the things. So men need to step up and call out other men for their bad behavior. I think that's important. The same as women need to step up and call out women for bad behavior. It's a thing. But we have to have education. We have to have conversation. We have to get involved. We have to speak up. So I think it's about education, not being quiet, not sitting around and watching things, getting involved with organizations that do help with the problems that you're facing in your communities. And I think that you need to help fund organizations that are doing the work. Because here's the thing, we don't have funding. So without funding, it's almost impossible to run organizations like ours, and I think there's many others. So helping with your time and with your care is good, but corporate funding and small business funding and funding places that are set up to do the work that it's hard for an individual to do is really important. And that's another thing government needs to fund. We need funding. There's amazing organizations, multidisciplinary organizations that are all working in different spheres in the GBV sector. But everybody's working in silos because we are set up competitively for funding.
Celeste, when you speak to survivors, and last year, this very same week, I spoke to the mother of Uyanene Ritana. And of course, everyone had seen that burst of gender-based violence that was happening around September 2017. And what she had said is that government, it's up to them to go ahead and really make that step up. And there are many more survivors who feel that the state is really failing them. And I want to bring up two cases, of course. We had Oscar Pistorius, who was released on bail. And then you had Timothy Omotoso, who was obviously, his case did not see the light of day in terms of any prosecutions there. Where are we in terms of that? Because a lot of the frustration then comes in terms of criminal prosecutions of perpetrators of gender-based violence. And that, of course, comes down to government and the funding, which you have just mentioned.
Yes. So here's the thing. We have great legislation. We have the best legislation in the world. And we have lots of political voice and no political will. Because if we had political will, that legislation would be implemented. And all of the things that you are seeing is because there's lack of implementation. There's lack of a filtering down of information. So there's no real understanding of what that legislation means and how it should be applied. And that is the fault with that lies on the side of government. Because they are not implementing that and they are not sending funds to that. And let me tell you something else. There's no accountability for that. Where's the accountability for the Omotoso case going south like that? Where is the accountability? There's no accountability. And I can mention a whole bunch of other cases where there's no accountability for the system failing survivors. There's no accountability for that. So until there's accountability and implementation, how are we going to see change? And that's one place where civil society organizations like ourselves drive it on a daily basis, case by case. But government needs to step up.
You know what was interesting, Celeste, is that march that had happened the day before the G20 Leaders Summit, then government said it's a national disaster. It's great to have these talk shops. It's great to mention that it's a national disaster, on top of course, gender-based violence being declared a pandemic. But the big argument to that is, what then? What then? Because we can't be having more of these protests, and in the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes, a woman will lose her life, a child will be abused, and it's just business as normal.
Yes. So the government declared it a national disaster with no special powers and no funding. So in actual fact, what does that mean to a survivor on the ground? So just to bring it into perspective, I want to talk a little bit about our campaign, because we've got a movement, not a campaign. We launched a movement this 16 days of activism called Bang Your Pot, which is, historically we bang pots for protest and for alert and all of that. And the call to action is this: bang your pot, do something, say something, contact an organization that can help you. Insist on your rights being taken into account. Insist that things happen. Do it in your community, in your sphere, but bang your pot. Don't just ask for things and then not be involved in the solution. I think that is really, really important. And I think for me, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell you, if you're a survivor, you can call our number, free of charge, 24/7, 08000 83 277, or you can free of charge dial our USSD number, *134 *7355#. You can go to our website, you can see our educational campaigns, our training, you can get assistance, you can go on to Speak Up and get the videos for education for the youth. Become involved in the solution, because until we are involved in the solution, it's easy for empty promises to be made to us.
Celeste, one final question, and this is conversations I had during the month of August when we had Women's Month. And I know it's frustrating because we would hope that we are close to ending gender-based violence as a pandemic. But from your view, and we've got 1 minute left, how close or how far are we in terms of ending gender-based violence as a pandemic? We've just got 1 minute, Celeste.
So what I'm saying is, from my own experience as a survivor, we are very, very far. So I'm a survivor myself, and I think we are very, very far. And the only way we're going to get there is everybody comes, all hands on decks, collaboratively, multidisciplinary, and start doing the things that we need to do and stop talking about it.
Celeste Louw, absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's Celeste Louw, who is the General Manager of Operations at the Tears Foundation. After the break, I'll be speaking to Dr. Shir Heva. You've noticed from last week, there have been rumors about a potential presidential pardon for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Will he get it, given that the ceasefire is still being violated and no one really knows what's going to happen in terms of the situation within the Middle East from an Israeli perspective? My conversation is after the break.